So it is time for that Terminator movie franchise ranking that I promised. Off the back of my reviews of all of the movies, I'm now going to give you my thoughts on how I would rank these films. But also, I will slip in, I'll tell you where I would put the Sarah Connor Chronicles and the Netflix anime show Terminator Zero, also just for good measure. I'll do that at the end. I'll do the films first. So let's get into this ranking. So the Terminator franchise is a franchise of films that I have grown up on. I was 8 years old in 1984 when the first Terminator film came out. I remember exactly when I got it got it on VHS. It was a gift for me at Christmas in one of my younger years from my sister. Yeah, great. I saw Terminator 2 at the cinema when it opened. I saw Terminator 3 at the cinema. I even took my son to see it. He was 3.5 years old. The movie was rated 12A. He could go in and see it, and he loved it. And then obviously I did see the other Terminator films at the cinema also. So how would I sort of rank these movies? Because we have a varying degree of quality in these films. You know, ranging from exceptionally good top 10 film of all time kind of scenario to a film that I would probably rarely ever watch again. So how do we go with these? So let's get into it. From worst to best. Let's start. So in that bottom spot, the 6th spot, I would actually put Terminator Genesis. Terminator Genesis. Whatever you want to call it. I don't know where to begin with this film. This film for me is much akin to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, in the sense that it wants to set up a lot of stuff down the line, and obviously it never gets into it. It never happens because the film flopped and the reset button was pushed for the Terminator franchise. So there's setups like who sent the Arnie Terminator back in time. We never find out. The Matt Smith Terminator that attacks John Connor, he whispers in his ear, "I've come a long way to find you," implying that he himself has travelled across time. Where has he come from? What's the story behind all that? We have a very convoluted plot in this one that, like Back to the Future 2, wants to reminisce and start playing in the playground of the very first Terminator film. But whereas you had the same actors there doing it, interacting with themselves kind of a thing, here we have a recast of characters. We have Emilia Clarke recast as Sarah Connor. No, doesn't really work. Although she isn't particularly bad in the film. You have Jai Courtney as a Kyle Reese. Sorry, just awful. And what's his name? The geezer, I forget the fella's name now, who plays John Connor. Jesus Christ, just awful. And you make the big mistake of turning John Connor into the villain of the piece. People get upset that Dark Fate killed off John Connor, yet this film here turned him into the primary villain. The film is a load of tripe, and the biggest problem with it is you don't get answers to certain questions that are set up, so there's never a conclusion to those. You're left hanging, which makes a rewatch pretty damn pointless. Now, 5th spot. Now, this is very difficult. These bottom ones are very difficult. And 5th and 4th spot are quite difficult as well to do. So I'm going to have to put Terminator Salvation in the 5th spot. Okay. The reason being, you know, on paper, it sounds like a great idea. We're finally getting a Terminator film that is set in the future battle of the series that we've always wanted. That future battle that we've seen glimpses of in the first film and in the second film. Even little bits, in the third film as well. We're finally getting that bluish world that we see with the laser cannons, the laser fire. All that. We don't get that. We get a film that is set in the desert. Okay, the film is set before this kind of a future. You could say it's set before this future comes to pass, because you're still using tech like A-10 tank killer aeroplanes and things like that. The casting in this film, other than Sam Worthington, who I think did a good job in this movie, Christian Bale is very loud, very over the top. Again, on paper, when you hear Christian Bale cast as John Connor, what fantastic casting. But what did he deliver? He delivered an unlikable performance in this movie. This film here, it coming out in 2009. We had Transformers a year prior, and this film has taken cues from the Transformer movies, with the big Transformer thing, the big Terminator things that are collecting people. You've got the motorbikes that come out and drive around. You've got the snakes in the water, the eel type things, Terminator eel type. Why haven't they got Terminator whales or Terminator sharks that attack the submarine? That's the question I have. Yeah, this film is quite a mess in a sense. It looks quite good. The primary problem with it is that for every good element, there's a bad element. It's a film of two halves. Yeah, it's neither here nor there, and it doesn't settle itself out in that sense. It's just, you know, this is background noise. This is a background noise movie. I can have it on. I can watch certain bits of it that I think are really good, and then other bits I'm on my phone, because the film is just dull and boring, and visually dull and boring. So that jumps to the fourth spot. So in the fourth spot is Terminator Dark Fate. Now again, it was very difficult how I wanted to do these two. The reason I put Terminator Dark Fate above Salvation is because obviously we've got Arnie coming back. Arnie does make a return in this film, albeit about an hour and 10 minutes into the movie. We have Linda Hamilton returning as Sarah Connor, and this film plays as a direct sequel to Terminator 2. And in my reviews, I did watch this as Terminator 3 to see if it played off of the back of Terminator 2, if it works. It feels very forced in what it does. In its story, it feels very forced. Now, this is a woke Terminator movie. This is a girl power, a female empowerment Terminator movie, which is really ironic for a Terminator film. Reason being, we don't need Terminator to be female empowering and woke, because Sarah Connor, Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Sarah Connor. Back in a day when woke wasn't a thing, when female empowerment wasn't a thing, we were given one of movies' big female leads, action leads, in Sarah Connor. So this film didn't need to push this agenda that it wanted to push, because the series is embedded in that kind of thing anyway, in a sense. The casting doesn't really work. The young girl who is to be the leader of the human resistance, this is quite a difficult film to watch. I did like the fella, Gabriel Luna, who plays the Rev 9 Terminator. I thought he was pretty good. The whole stuff about the girl from the future who's been augmented, this is just like carried on, you know, story elements or things that they've done in Terminator Salvation with the Marcus Wright character. He was essentially an augment done by the Terminators. So you've taken that idea and you've kind of put it here as well. These films do take from other projects that have been done in the franchise before. And yeah, it's like they can't come up with their own ideas. So there's that one. So in third place, my third favourite Terminator film is Terminator 3. I really enjoyed Terminator 3. Right? I'm not going to lie. I think it is a really good film. I think it is a lot of fun. Yes, it's not as deep as the other two Terminator films that came before it or anything like that, but it is a solid popcorn movie that isn't boring, that runs from beginning to end, offers up some really fantastic action set pieces that haven't been topped in any of the Terminator films after it. It has some wonderful CGI moments, one or two dodgy bits, you know, the gravestone, but Arnie at the end where you could see through him. This was the first time that CGI was really utilised on a Terminator, and it's never been done better. When his leg's missing, his arm's missing, you can see through the face. It looks fantastic. Kristanna Loken delivers in the role of the TX. You know, she's quite intimidating in a sense, quite scary, and this film does a wonderful job of giving you a high octane, fast paced popcorn Terminator movie that you can put on, you can sit down, you can enjoy, and it gives you an ending that is just leaves you speechless. It really does. The ending of that film is a powerful place to end a movie. A Hollywood movie to end on a downer is a powerful place. John Connor's story arc through the film, it works. Yeah, here's a character that has been, has for years, he's been in hiding. He knows the future for him, or what the future should have been for him. Judgment Day has been done and completed. Sarah Connor has passed away and left him. He's on his own, but he can't integrate back into society through the fear of what's going on. And this, or what could possibly happen, he has to stay hidden. And this in turn affects him and makes him question this, you know, him being the leader of the human race and all this nonsense that was put onto him. And it isn't until the end of the movie that he steps up and actually accepts that fate. It's a good film, okay? It's a good film. Now, in second spot is Terminator 2. Yes, Terminator 2. It's not my favourite Terminator movie, because whilst it is a really good film, you know, from James Cameron, for me, the film has narrative flaws. There's a better version of this movie in my head, and it's all to do with how the film was marketed, how the film was presented, the age range of the movie because of the sheer budget of the movie, the constraints that put on it. It leaves me wanting a version that is better than what we actually got. Now, I know a lot of people complain about the humorous elements put into Terminator 3 and things like that. That begun here. That begun here in this film. And no one has issue with it. But there it is in it. So for me, it's a film that is a great film. No denying that. But a film that I know could be better under certain circumstances. If you go and check out my review, if you haven't seen it, I go more into depth into that. So that third spot, third spot, what am I saying? The first spot goes to the original 1984 Terminator classic. You know, what can I say about this film that hasn't been said? Nothing really. It's a great film. You know, yes, it's a cheaper film done on a tighter budget, but this is Terminator at its best. You know, Terminator 2 could have benefited from the Terminator beginning as being as dark as he is in this film, and then having the switch in the narrative a little further in. But like I said, the age rating and all this sort of thing prevented that from happening. But there we go. So there's my ranking, okay? There's my ranking. So bottom is Genesis, Salvation, Dark Fate, although those two could anytime. Then there's a big gap. There's a gap of, you know, of how good they are compared to how good they are. It's not just a little thing where I could question where I put these things. There's a big, huge gap there of quality. And then we come to Terminator 3, Terminator 2, Terminator 1. Now, like I said, the Sarah Connor Chronicles and Terminator 0, I would solidly slip into that gap that I mentioned there, that quality gap. I would put Terminator 0 at the lower part of in that gap, with Sarah Connor Chronicles above it. Terminator 0 offered a very thoughtful look at the Terminator franchise and questioned the morality of what we do as humans. things like this that I found very thought-provoking. You know, the philosophical side of the questions therein about us destroying ourselves. Wonderfully done. And the Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles had, in my mind, the best recasting of Sarah Connor and Lena Headey. The geezer Garrett Dillahunt, who played the Terminator, I thought was great. This show went for 2 seasons. It unfortunately got cancelled. It was a Fox show. Fox are notorious for cancelling sci-fi shows, and they did here. And unfortunately, they cancelled it on a cliffhanger. Now, the one thing that Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles does do is it acknowledges the death of Sarah Connor from Terminator 3, in that it's said that Sarah Connor is due to die in the future, that she is ill, but they travel through time. They jump forward in time. Ironically, Terminator Genesis copied this story element. They took that and transferred their characters forward in time and this sort of thing. Yeah, but it's a really good show, and it's just a shame that it got cancelled on a cliffhanger, and we've never got resolution to that series. But that's nothing new for the Terminator franchise. Terminator Salvation was meant to set up a new trilogy. Terminator Genesis was meant to set up a new trilogy. Dark Fate was meant to set up a new trilogy. There we go. So it's nothing new for the Terminator franchise. But there's my thoughts on the Terminator films. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's all subjective, isn't it? You know, these are only my opinions, my thoughts on it. Where do you put this stuff? How do you rank this film franchise? Let me know in the comments down below. See you soon.